Hello and welcome all to Level 1 Adventuring. I, as always, am your host and Dungeon Master Wolfe Scott. Thank you for holding on for our slightly normal than regular waiting screen. I was messing with some settings on the background because our little bot assistants weren't joining us, but now, hey, they are, we're good, we're here, and we're all happy to be here. If you are new to Level 1 Adventuring, what is this? What are we? What are you watching? We are primarily a RPG and TTRPG focused stream. We handle big group games like you're probably familiar with. D&D, we have an ongoing campaign on the channel right now. We do smaller, more solo, intimate indie games, which we're going to be running tonight an example of. And we also do digital RPGs, so we run Solasta, we're going to be running Baldur's Gate when it hits max, so there's a lot of content you can see, will see, and we recommend you follow us on all the platforms to stay in the loop. You can check out our YouTube, where all the previous episodes of these series will be uploaded. And as well as our Discord, that's where we talk about what we're going to be running, what we are running. We're going to be playing some D&D 5e there as a community soon. So there's tons of stuff to see. I also post Homebrew 5e stuff for people to have for free. So there's, yeah, tons of stuff that you can get if you join our community. We appreciate it. Thank you to StreamLabs, Stream Audio, StreamSpell, AI TwitchBot, Tabletop Audio, all the services, both paid and free, that make our streams better and the experience for our audience more engaging and exciting. And if you're running streams and you would like to upgrade your stream experience, right down in our description, there's links, and if you use them and you download some of the stuff we're using, we get a kickback, and we very much appreciate when you do that. But speaking of what we are doing, and, well, my brain just turned off what we're doing and how we're doing it, we are going to be running, let me switch over my screens here. Beanie Beanie Vici says, I googled handsome Twitch streamers who are absolutely dreamy and have a hypnotizing voice. I don't know how you got here, Vinny, but you say it took you here. Gotta say, Google delivered 10 out of 10. Listen, if you can tell Google to, you know, loop me into more of those searches, to put me higher in the algorithm, I would very much appreciate it. If you can just put in a good word for me, Vinny Vinny. But what are we doing tonight? We're going to be doing a familiar one. It's a solo RPG. We've been burning through the past couple of sessions because I would like to see this one, you know, wrapped up in a nice big narrative bow for our audience out there. This is Tale of the Burned Stones. Vinny says, I'll have my people contact Google.
I'll have my people contact your people. We'll talk, we'll schmooze. Carry on. Hey, what do you say?
Tales of the Burned Stones. This is a game by friend of the channel, RPD, of Fari RPG. He's played a couple of their games on our show, and we actually are still in the middle of another playthrough of Firelights, which is an RPD, Fari RPG's game. What is Tale of the Burned Stones? Tale of the Burned Stones is a lot of things. It is a solo-friendly RPG. You can play it with friends or without, like me. Although you're here now, so we're kind of like friends. Like I'm playing with my friends, at any rate. Solo RPG, solo-friendly RPG. It is a prequel game to another game that they have coming out called STONEBURNER, which is like sci-fantasy. You are a bunch of dwarves who are in space, trying to reclaim your home sectors, home planetoids, metroids, however that's working, and they're all infested with demons. So this is the prequel to that, where it's a bit more fantasy-centered, right? And it's using the Breathless system, which is a tried and true system that Fari RPG builds a lot of their games off of. So if you're familiar with any of the things they've made before, you're probably going to be familiar with this. And, most importantly, it's gosh dang free. You silly gooses. So go download it. It's free. There's a link in our top pinned comment here on Twitch, and will also be on the YouTube in the description. I recommend you do donate some money if you can, because the games are good, and Fari RPGs definitely deserves it. But, you know, if you're in a tight spot and you just need to play a game that's going to be fun for you, then yeah, download it for free. It's awesome. We've been playing this game, like I said, for a couple of sessions, so we already have some established things that have been going on. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we left off. I'm going to try and truncate that information as quickly as I can so that we can get to the meat and potatoes of the fun time, right? But the large talking points are... Here's our character right here. Duragrim fell deep. Duragrim. Duragrim is a dwarf. These are the old dwarf lands, which have been infested by demons due to a sort of apocalyptic cataclysmic event where a volcanic mountain called Mount Baram exploded, releasing the demons everywhere. Bad news bears. Duragrim is dead. More accurately, he's undead. He was alive during the old Dwarf Kingdom times, but he was exiled from his house. He was once a noble, and unfortunately that meant he was separated from his family when the demons took over and they murdered everybody, including him. But because of all the rage in his heart and his unfinished business, his soul was selected by a coven of dwarven witches known as the Sisters of the Eclipse. They brought him back to life into what is known as a remnant, who are kind of like these monster hunting, demon slaying beings, right, who are in service to the Sisters of the Eclipse, right? Brought him back to life, and now he is sort of a little bit under their command, their influence, doing their dirty work in a post-apocalyptic dwarf hold. Trying to, you know, cut out some meager point to his existence now that all that's left of his life is burned stones. He said the thing. He said the thing. And that's the wide gist, the narrative gist of our story. More accurately, what is happening, what has been happening. Well, number one, the most important thing is axe gun. Right? I mean, that's all you really need to know is axe gun. We have an axe gun, which is pretty cool. I'm going to say the word again, axe gun. But what's been happening? Duragrim was tasked with recovering a magical artifact for the Sisters of the Eclipse, known as the Burning Band of Brolta. Brolta was a dwarven runesmith in the time of the old dwarven days, and she was working on a magical item called the Burning Band, which... the sisters claim would allow the wearer to mentally influence, psychically dominate, you know, demons, which seems pretty important in a world that is currently overrun with them. And so, Duragrim has been tasked to go find it. The problem is, Brolda's Bastion is pretty much in the old remnants of the underground, you know, of the dwarf holds where Mount Baram sat, which is now quite famously overrun with Hellspawn. And so that's bad news for him. What we've been finding out through the sort of generative improv role play, right, of this game is that the nearest entrance to this place was in the ruined sort of basement, the collapsed, what would you call it, undercroft of a temple. And so that's where he had to go to get inside. And when he did... he discovered, of course, it was filled with monsters and demon worshippers. He managed to put a few down, which is great, but not before stumbling upon a bunch of dwarven prisoners inside one of the old worship halls that were being watched over by a small gaggle of demon wardens, right? And not wanting to forsake his kinsfolk to, you know, demonic sacrifice and influence, he decided to intervene. He managed to distract one guard. The other guard left on their own volition to drag one of the prisoners away to some nefarious end, meaning we had only one to worry about, which we dealt with. We got into a scuffle, we got beaten up and bloodied a bit, but we survived, and we managed to sneak the rest of the prisoners back outside of the temple, but not before we heard a pained... and excruciating scream from back within the temple. So we can only assume that time is running out for our one dwarven friend who we're trying to rescue, this hapless prisoner. And that is pretty much where our last session ended. We got turned around, right? We were classic fantasy, you know, conflict here. We were so near our goal. We were in the temple. We're looking for the entrance, and we got turned around. We had to completely leave. Now we have to go back in. It's a big old mess. But we managed to get the prisoners out and rest for the night. Unfortunately, a couple of wrinkles have folded into our story towards the end of that session, which I'm going to talk about now, because one actually did arise from the session proper, right? From sort of the roles we were making in that session. But then another complication to this story, which I seeded in episode 3, because the last night was episode 4, right? So this is 5, I think. Basically, the session before last, I had kind of left on a bit of a cliffhanger, but then I went on vacation and forgot about the cliffhanger and, like, excluded that information. So now we have to honor that information because we did roll it, and it is a part of the story, but it hasn't triggered yet, so we're gonna get it involved now. So a lot of unfortunate things are about to happen to us, right? So let's go back to our quest. Getting back into the ruins, yes. So as we mentioned, the young, defiant dwarf who was taken away by the demon warden, his name is Bromir. His situation has definitely worsened and or escalated since we were escaping. We heard a pained wail. But the other thing... Actually, there's 3 bad things that are happening to us. Rule of 3. So number 1 is Bromir's situation has gone from bad to worse. We don't know to what end, but it's bad. Number 2 is, as we were escaping, we decided to... We rolled a failure on our last sneak check, right, essentially to get out. But I chose, because you have the option of either, you know, it's like failing or succeeding with a consequence, right? So I chose to succeed with a consequence because we were almost out. I was like, let's just get there and I'll deal with whatever we come up with, right? What I ended up rolling, randomly, was a couple of prompts that led me to the narrative conclusion that one of the dwarves that we've just helped escape is actually corrupted by demons, presumably, and is in hiding. And we don't know who they are or why yet. We don't have this knowledge as Duragrim, right? That knowledge is not character knowledge, that is meta knowledge. One of the dwarves is corrupted, and we don't know to what end that will manifest, but it is going to manifest. But the other drama point that we developed in the session before last, which I had totally forgot about and like alluded to, was Duragrim had died in an earlier sesh, which is not really a problem when you're undead. You know, you discorporate, you have some bad times in the void, and then you, in terms of being a remnant, you reanimate, usually at one of the, like, sort of graveyard mounds that are set up by the Sisters of the Eclipse, the witches, so that you resurrect there, right? And it's your spawn point. You come back into the world to do some damage. When we re-manifested, right, we had noticed that we felt a presence following us, right? Something like eyes, you know, on the backs of our skulls. We couldn't quite place them. And we've been seeing a shadow kind of follow us through the hills and the wastes as we've been nearing the temple, right? So at the end of that session, I had alluded to the fact that the shadowy figure was going to emerge and then forgot about it, right? But now we have to make sure we make good on that threat, whatever it is. Now, what we initially rolled for that idea, they're called sparks within the main document, right? You can sort of roll on these tables to give you ideas of where the story's going to go. We rolled pursued by greed. So whatever this thing is, it is pursuing us, and it is motivated by greed. And I have an idea of what that is in my mind. I've had, obviously, like a couple, less than 24 hours, 12 hours, whatever, however long I slept, to think about it. And I have some ideas. But that's where we were / where we are going to be. And now we're going to pick up the story where we left off. So the last thing that we kind of had here was we were making camp for these dwarven refugees to kind of get them out before we go our separate ways again, to go back into the temple and hopefully liberate Bromir from his captivity. But now we have all these threats that are lurking. We have this possibly corrupted dwarf. We have this thing pursuing us in the hopes of greed. So I think there's likely a chance that it manifests here at camp, right? While we're doing our thing. So I guess the first thing that we should do is let's leave it up to some random chance, right? We want this is the whole point of solo RPG. We want to try and give ourselves some rolls. So we're going to go to the question oracle. It says this lets you disclaim decision making on a particular situation. When using the oracle, envision the scene, then ask a yes or no question about the action's outcome. So the scene in question, it is a solemn and gray. If I had one emotional brush to paint the scene with, it would be gray. We are essentially in the ruins of an old dwarf settlement in the ash-scoured hills around Mount Baram. It is a gaggle of worn, bloodied, hungry dwarf refugees who are huddled together around a meager fire over a blackened sky, right? Which is being buffeted with the dust storms that Mount Baram is now littered with since the eruption of the volcano mountain however many decades ago, right? We see Hilda, who was the name of the dwarven mother whose son was taken by the demon wardens. And she is, she has a couple of her fellow dwarfkin huddling up beside her, putting their arms on her shoulders. I think the sound of listening to Bromir scream as we were exiting the dilapidated halls of the temple is like just echoing throughout her mind. She's probably hugging her knees and sort of gently rocking herself and whimpering Bromir's name under her breath while she's attended to by these sort of, dwarves who are for more or less broken and brokenhearted, but they're trying to remain strong in the face of adversity for Hilda. Then we have Duragrim, blue-skinned, dead-eyed, sort of situated away from camp, sort of near where the hills slope down into the Badlands, overlooking the temple, partially because, of course, Duragrim wants to remain alert in case any threats should try to assault the camp in the middle of the night. And also, as we've established in the fiction so far, Duragrim is a remnant, which means he's an undead, and he's in service of the Sisters of the Apocalypse, which a lot of the living dwarves, especially in the time before the eruption of Mount Baram, didn't trust the witches, right? They were obviously a doomsday cult. They were a coven of morally ambiguous spellcasters, and now they have undead dwarf servants, warriors that are murderers, they're monster killers, under their control. So, even with Duragrim liberating some of the dwarves, I imagine there is still a level of distrust there amongst many of them. There is a level of superstition. There is definitely fear. And they watch Duragrim murder a demon, Valen says, howdy. Hey, Valen, good to see you. Happy to have you in chat. As always. Look at that little sword icon you got there for your sub. We appreciate you. So, definitely keeping himself to the side to avoid any unwanted attentions, any, harsh and dark whispers behind his back, and is really just, tending to his equipment, sharpening his axe blade, you know, preparing some more flechette and buckshot for the axe gun, and probably taking some time to stew and brew some more potions, because that is one gift that the Sisters of the Eclipse have given the Remnants, the ability to brew potions to help them combat these demons. And, you know, preparing all of that for the day to come. So, in the darkness of the camp, there is, of course, a chance that something bad will happen. I think what we want to do is say, envision the scene, that's the scene, and then ask a yes, no questions. So, because we have kind of forgotten about our first threat, right? The Lust of Greed event. We're going to make that our primary, our number one thing to focus on right now. And we are going to say, what is the likelihood that something bad is going to happen to us? I'm going to say almost certain. Because, well, A, we forgot about it, so it only feels fair to ratchet up the intensity of it happening, right? But number two, I mean, I'm saying number two, there's going to be several reasons. It's dark. This thing has been following us. We are stationary. We're at camp. You know, it doesn't really have to hunt. It knows where we are. I think the likelihood of it stumbling across us is pretty high at this point. So we're going to go to our dice roller, and I'll move it over here so it's more visible. And I'll move this over here. It's hard for me to know where all of my screens are when I'm playing with y'all, because I don't look at my screen. Perfect. And let's open up the dice roller. So I'm going to roll this d12. What is going to happen? 12. So the answer is yes and. Okay. So this thing finds us. And the and is where we must discover. So I'm going to go to the complications table for the and, right? And we'll see if it can inspire something in us. You can always roll on the tables for a complication. They give you different scenarios for which you might have a complication and different effects for the various complications that might happen, right? So if this is fiction-based, I'm going to say we're in a moment of being careful, right? We were preparing camp. We were tending to our equipment. So this is a complication that is arising because we were being careful, so I'm going to roll a d8. Number 7. I keep rolling this one. We found the wrong person. Well, I think more accurately, the wrong person found us. Okay, so... Alright, so, we've been caught. We've been had, folks. We've been caught by the wrong person. And what I think this means, and I've given some thought about this and trying to establish why we were being followed and, you know, what that would turn into. I think what we have here is, you know, we have our scene. Duragrim is seated. He's sharpening his axe blade. He's looking out. Those black dead eyes staring determinedly down at the temple, looking for any signs of movement, and like muttering and murmuring to himself old dwarven prayers, old dwarven what's the word? Affirmations of strength, you know, by the stones of my forefathers, by the blades of those who fell before me, will my enemies fall at my feet. And just sort of like, you know, you hear the clanging of the sharpened against the steel. And so focused is he on the task at hand and preparing for the days ahead that we do not see the sort of amorphous black shadow that has begin to peer up over from one of the rock formations behind his shoulder, right? And like we have the cinematic camera, right? I feel like there's like a hair in my eye and I can't get it. It's really bothering me as I'm trying to describe this very like daring scene right now. Okay. Duragrim is, you know, once again clacking, and you can see sparks and Will my enemies fall before me? Their blood shall mingle with my blood, but only one will stand. And like, ting, ting. And the figure just continues to crawl its way over the stone. Body's like flattened out like a bug across the rocks, as it seemingly is able to like just free hand hold these stones of the old ruins and just crawl its way over them and like get nearer to Duragrim. And I'm wondering, should we like, do we give ourselves an opportunity to like detect if this thing before something bad happens to us, or like let's see, what is the likelihood that we could detect it? What are my stats? Because I have an idea of what it is, but I don't want to reveal it just yet. Willpower, dexterity, strength, resilience, grit. I don't think this is strength. Dexterity doesn't make much sense for this. I guess maybe willpower, because it's like I'm so focused on doing what I have to do that like can I divide my attentions? Can I ensure? Can I what's the word? Can I remain resolute in my tasks while also keeping myself aware to the other ongoings of the camp, I guess? Willpower is my worst stat. So, but the other, it makes the most sense, I think, narratively speaking. So we are going to roll our skill check and see what happens. So I'm going to roll this d4. It is a 4. Okay. So we succeed. But there's, once again, a minor complication. So I'm going to roll one more complication. We made the wrong assumption. Okay. Yeah, this is perfect. This is exactly what I was thinking it would be. So, I'm going to go back to my quest here. We've detected the threat. Oh. We've detected the threat, but we've made the wrong assumption. Detached? I can't text. I can't text, I can't type, I can't talk, I can't do any of the T words. So we're clanging on our steel. The stone shall guide me. The stone shall keep me strong. The stone shall, and like as we like ping, you know, like place another one of the I forget what you call the item that you use to sharpen a blade. It's escaping me right now, that word. As we drag it across the steel, right, it creates a spark. And with the spark, the flash of that spark, with the dim low firelight that we have rolling in our camp, it creates just enough of a reflection of, you know, of all the environment around us that we see sort of that oblong dark shape behind us, you know? And that is when we get that feeling of eyes on the back of our necks. Once again, our hair stands straight up. And with practiced precision, you know, we swing the axe gun into our hands, and we like we release. Well, actually, would we release one? We're trying to be sneaky. We don't want to. We don't want the demons to find us. So we like swing the axe gun around, right? And we just take the butt of it, and we just knock it against the first dark form, you know, within arm's reach. As we like spin around, we make contact with something. We can feel impact as it goes careening backwards. We fully spin. We're now holding the axe gun in firing position. All right, you hellspawn, show yourselves. Smile wide for me, and I'll blast your jaw clean off your. And he's like, you know, yelling. And as our eyes settle on the figure who we've just buffeted away, right, we see this very familiar and very sorrowful sight. Because what we lay eyes on is not a demon, but a vision of probably a fate that Duragrim has witnessed in the past, and could also be a vision of the fate that Duragrim will one day share, because what he sees laid out before him is what I'm going to be referring right now as an emptied remnant, right? So basically, it is another person like him. It is a remnant. It is a person who has been resurrected by the Sisters of the Eclipse, right? We've established in the fiction that every time a remnant dies, and every time that they imbibe one of the potions that they make, this is sort of the cost of their power, right? This is a toll that the witches have been placed upon the magics that they've given to them. When they drink a potion and or when they die, a fraction of their memory leaves them, right? We've had a couple scenes in the fiction so far when we drink our potions, or that one time when we were felled in combat, where we experienced a memory from our past before it evaporated and it left us forever, right? And a little bit of us, even though we're undead, you know, more permanently dies. It fizzles out. And I think on a long enough timeline, right, if this keeps happening, if remnants keep abusing their magics, if they keep dying in combat, because what ultimate fate befalls a remnant? They can't die, really. So what is like their ultimate fail state? It is existing within a body that has no recollection of self. It is existing within a form that has no concept of what has come before it, right? It's essentially just like hollowed out of any emotions, of any previous history, of any life experience, and it becomes this sort of this husk, you know, of who they formerly were. And so when I heard Pursued by Greed, right, and this thing has been following us since one of the resurrection sites of the Witches of the Eclipse, I got this idea, I got this vision in my head of, like, imagine a dwarf, right? Because we're playing with the fact that we are in the dwarf holds of Old Mount Baram, right? But imagine, like, a dwarf. Imagine, like, Gollum from Lord of the Rings if Gollum had been a dwarf and not a halfling, right? Like a hobbit. Like, it is this creature which has sort of devolved over time because it is ever living and it's not taking care of itself. And it's motivated by dark forces, but it is no longer able to think independently or freely, right? It's and it has, like, you know, the same cold blue complexion that Duragrim has, and the same, you know, sort of squat, compact, muscular, although now sort of like taut and emaciated frame. But yeah, the body feels like shriveled, almost shrink wrapped to its ribs. The eyes are sort of bulging out of what would be the skull because the skin is so tight. And, you know, I imagine the beard, right, has, like, grown to these ungodly proportions. But, you know, it's, like, matted and knotted and maybe even mangy in some places. Just a very sorrowful, despicable sight, like, covered in dust and muck. Probably wearing nothing but a loincloth, probably the only, you know, semblance of its humility and dignity that it has left. And, you know, missing some teeth, or like the jaws like split and uneven. And so we knock it with the back of our gun. We flip it. We're holding this thing. We think a demon at, you know, sort of at gunpoint. And then we turn and we see that it is this emptied remnant who's now laying against the stones, and there's sort of just this wild, feral, animalistic, instinctual panic on its face. Its, like, arms are up and its eyes are wide, and it's sort of like looking from left to right sort of frantically, but then also back to Duragrim, just sort of like breathing. It sounds like it's having trouble staying alive, quote unquote, even though it isn't. And I think, you know, Duragrim is shaken for a moment. Because being confronted with this dark possibility of his own existence is very arresting, you know? I guess the question is this thing hostile? I know why it's pursued us, to a degree. It's pursued by greed, right, was the thing that I rolled. So I think that despite the fact that the Emptied Remnant really doesn't have a lot of complex thoughts anymore, it doesn't have any particular remembrances of its life, it probably has these, like, fading pangs of familiarity, right? Which is why they'll return to places like the resurrection sites, because they know that if they die, they go back there, and it just feels kind of familiar. And so, like moths to a flame, they're drawn to those places, and also just, like, things that remind them of their purpose, quote-unquote, as being, like, a remnant of the Sisters of the Eclipse. So, like, things like the offering bowls, which we described, are stationed at the resurrection sites with alchemical ingredients for the remnants to take when they're resurrected so they can make new potions, right? Those are probably things that, like, these creatures will, like, jealously, like, selfishly hoard or try and find, even if they don't know what to do with it anymore, even if they don't even know how to make a potion. It's just, like, the thought that, that sensation, that feeling of holding those ingredients and having those things makes them feel safer or more empowered, right? And so I think this thing watched us resurrect, watch us scrounge up the ingredients from the bowl, and became enamored, became obsessed with the idea that they needed those, they wanted those were their things that we've taken, right? And has been following us ever since. Did not attack us in the temple because it knew that the temple was dangerous. But now that we are alone in the dark of camp at night and we're on our own, the perfect opportunity to try and get what it wants from us. So here's the question: Is this thing hostile? Whoa, Vinny Vidi Vici, feed the dragon a cookie. Beans is hungry. Look at that extra 10 HP. That means he'll be ready for a dragon fight very soon. Hopefully he lost the last one he tried. Okay. So I'm going to go right in the middle with this. Actually, no, you know what? I'll say I butted him up with my weapon, right? So I'm actually going to look at my inventory, because your items, like your skills, use dice, right? That will deteriorate over time, and that you have to use a mechanic in the game called catching your breath, hence the system's name being Breathless, to get your stats back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually force a check. I'm going to take my axe gun, which is a D8. So I'm going to make a note now that it's sitting at a D6. And I'm going to see if using my weapon to knock this thing away, right, is this enough to corral it, to stop it from being hostile? Do we scare it enough that it's not hostile? Or is it going to try and fight us? Is it feral enough that now we've hit it and it's ready to throw hands, essentially? Alright, so I'm going to roll my D8. Oh, a 2 does not sound good. I do have a point of inspiration from Mochi from last stream, but do I want to use it? You fail or succeed with a major complication. I think I fail, right? I think it's only fair that we fail. So we try to intimidate, God, look at me trying to type so desperately. Intimidate the emptied remnant, and we fail. So this thing's hostile. Okay. Good to know. Sounds like we're probably going to have to put on a little bit more daring music for this scene to come. Okay. Oh, we're gonna look at our challenge table, because we now know, we learned from last stream, because RPD, friend of the channel, creator of this game, watches our stream and plugs them very often. Thank you, RPD. Actually implemented a new system for challenges to help you with solo play. Instead of like running combat by yourself, you can run them as challenges, which was very helpful last session in fighting the demon. So here is our challenge table. If a regular person would be like this challenge, and a demon would be something like an 8 number of successes, right? Although I think I treated the last demon as a 5, but I think that was because I was only fighting the 1. You know, I'm just assessing my risk here. I think this is a risky challenge. I don't think this thing is like so weak or so too dissimilar to a mortal, right? It definitely has some extra oomph behind it, even in its warped and dilapidated state. But I don't think that this is like so dangerous that we would be entirely at risk of dying against it. You know, there's always a chance our dice rolls could suck, but I think this is just risky. This thing is essentially a dangerous, dire animal, right? Not like a dog, but something far more feral. I think it's a risky challenge. So we essentially need 5 successes to accomplish our goal here. And we need to have... The one thing that this doesn't show us, which is interesting, and I wonder if RPD, if you're watching this later, it shows us how many successes we need, but we don't really know if we have sort of a number of fails, right, that are required before we know the challenge has been. I mean, I guess you could just keep running like in a combat. Presumably, you could just keep running the challenge until you like run out of HP and you die or whatever. But for other situations, when do you determine when you stop rolling for the challenge? You know, when do you know that you failed? I'm gonna use a little bit of my D&D 5e skill knowledge, or I should say skill challenge knowledge, because I use a lot of skill challenges in 5e which have been adapted from like 4e and stuff, where normally it's however many number of successes before 3 failures, right? Magic number 3 is what I'm gonna say, and that will determine what happens, right? So here we go. I think so. We failed our first little attempt there. So I think the first thing that we need to establish. So we knock him. We're holding the gun. The thing is like staring at us, and like we're sort of frozen for a moment as we're watching this thing, and like, you know, cold sweat sort of rolls down our brow. And our trigger finger hesitates, you know? And as we are watching it sort of face to face with our own sort of, I don't want to say mortality because we're immortal, but our own existential dread, you know, made manifest, we begin to say something to try and calm its nerves, or at least, you know, assert dominance over the situation. And we're holding the gun and we're sort of shaking. We're like, "Don't you get any funny?" And like before we finish the sentence, the thing's eyes just go wide. It's like sniffed out our hesitation, and with its hands up, it like presses its palms up against the stones and just pushes upward, almost like does like this half somersault like into the air above us, and just like lands on us and like grabs us by the leathers, and like is now sort of like feet planted like on our chest, arms on our shoulders, like shaking us and just like yelling, just like yelling at us in our face, trying to throttle us, trying to pull the coveted reagents off of our body that we so desperately want to try and keep safe. So this thing is hostile. and it's now on top of us, and it wants to start a problem. So, what do we do? I think we want to try to resolve this peacefully as best we... I mean, like, obviously we're in danger, and Duragrim is not so in love or attached with the idea of the remnants that he would want to preserve its life over the cost of his own, but, like, he also feels for it, so I don't think there is a drive to outright murder it if he can prevent it. So, first thing we're going to do, it's on us, right? So, our ability to wrestle it is probably pretty low. I mean, shoot it is probably pretty low. We're going to have to wrestle it. So, I'm going to... Mochi! Hey, happy to have you here. Actually, is this... No, it's a risky challenge. I'm going to say it's a risky challenge. I was going to go back on my word, but... I'm not. I'm gonna hold. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna roll a strength check, right? I'm gonna take a look at my skills. I have a D8, so I'm gonna step that down to a D6. I'm gonna roll that D8 and roll a 3. So a 3 is I succeed, but there is a minor complication. Grand. I'll take the success. So I have a number of successes, 1 out of 5. But what is my complication? We're going to take a look back here. We're going to go to... We have the complication chart here, yes. Mochi says, did you enjoy Ahsoka last night? Oh, wow. Beans watches Ahsoka. Oh, no, actually, he didn't. He doesn't have the privilege of watching TV, he says. Wow. Beans, you know I would let you watch a Star Wars show. Don't say that I wouldn't do that. I would let you do that. But apparently he's spec-sized now. He is shape-shifted into a tiny dust. So maybe that means he doesn't have the capabilities to use the opposable thumbs for the remote? But if that's the case, Beans, let me know next time you want to tune in. I'll turn it on for you. But we got a success. So we're going to look at our mechanical-based complications. Because now we're in a fight. So it feels like we should use some mechanical-based situations. We're going to roll a D8, which is a 2. You get a bad position. Okay. So, once again, we know that in this game, when you take different positions, it forces effects on your die rolls. So, now we are in a bad position, which means we have to roll twice and take the lowest result. Right? Which isn't great. Although, I think we can take a turn to change our position. Checks. Rest. Loot. Let me take a look at the actual rule book. Because if I can prevent myself from getting a really bad position, I will. Or did I just open up... Alter the battlefield. Yeah, there are 4 actions that can happen during combat. You can attack. If you want to go somewhere but the distance is too big, you can move. Before starting a battle during one, you may want to change your surroundings or your environment to redefine what is true in the fiction. This will allow you to possibly get a better position during your future checks or attacks. You may also want to introduce aspects that will hinder your enemies or make sure they have a bad position when they attack you. So I guess, because interestingly enough, because this is not really a combat, this is a skill challenge, so I don't want to say that I can just use a what do you call it? I should probably have to roll to see if I can change my position. Right, that seems fair. So, I'm going to try... Let me go back to my... Where's my... Getting back into it? Okay, so now I'm at a bad position. So what does that mean for me in the fiction? What I think that means is, you know, it jumped up on me, It grabbed my shoulders. It started shaking me, knocking around. I think we're like stumbling backward under the weight of this thing, right? And we are like our footing slips out from underneath us, right? So because this was a success as well, we get a bad position. Yeah, okay. So, oh man, there's so much happening. So it jumps on us, it's straddling us, it's shaking us. I think what happens is we lurch upward, right? And we headbutt it, just like straight in between the eyes. Thunk! Just like that heavy, wide-browed head of ours, thunk, right into its own. So it knocks it back for a second, so it's like considered a success during the combat, right? And the creature like reels backward for a moment, sort of out of surprise, and we're about to like push forward, right, like to use the momentum to get our footing, but it like just leans its weight all the way back into us the next moment, and we lose our footing and we fall flat on our backs, right? So now it's on top of us. It is, you know, has our clothes and our leathers in its hands, and it's just like shaking us against the ground, trying to wrestle our person. So we got a success. We did like a hit, but not without some cost. So I think I want to try to get a better position. Before starting a battle during when you may want to change your surroundings. This will allow you to possibly get... It's not expressly saying that I need to... I guess I should roll for it. Okay. So if I'm being wrestled, what would I use to probably get a better position? Probably strength. But I have to roll twice and take the lowest result. So now I roll a d6 because my strength got knocked down. A 3? Okay, okay. I think that's a success, right? The answer is... Oh, sorry. Oh, I just lost my success. You succeeded, but there is a minor complication. Okay, so once again, I'm going to roll this d8. So that is a 5. You step down your item twice. Okay, so this is not technically a success in the sense that I'm counting it towards my skill challenge, but I am out of my bad position, right? But I think what happens, because my item suffers in the process, right? So I'm going to go back to my items. Oh my god, it goes down to all the way to the lowest possible thing. That sucks. Okay. I think what happens here is, as it's like throttling us, we manage to like wrestle our hand underneath our weapon, right? And like push upward so that we get it off of our chest so we can like get back like into a kneeling position, like get to a stand. But as we're doing that, this thing is like throttling us, right? And like pounding at us. And this thing has surprising strength. You know, this thing is like a feral animal at this point. This taut, like, sort of, what's the word? Like, it's desperate. It's adrenaline, right? It is so hungry for this thing, for these reagents on us, that, like, its power belies its, like, form. And it's just sort of like thunk, 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 and we're like holding our weapon, and we can see it like boom, boom. It like bends, like the metal begins to like warp underneath the strength of this thing's like meaty fists, as it's just like tunk, tunk, you know, on top of our weapon. So our weapon is being damaged, but at least we're out of our bad position, which is good because we're going to need the good position to hopefully do something. Okay. So even though our weapon is damaged, it's still usable. We can still use it with another stat. What do we want to do here? What do we want to do here? Okay. Dexterity would be speed. We still have a D. Oh no, our strength we use, so now that's a D4. Our strength is pretty much at the lowest it could be. Our best bet, and so is our weapon. So the best bet is using dexterity. We can also use our grit, but you only get one of those per day. I should make a note there. We still only have like what, 1 success towards this? Brutal. Okay, but we have a decent position now. I think what we do is dexterity would be speed. Maybe we try and like bait it. I mean, yeah, we can. Oh wait, we have abilities we can use too. Oh man, is that something that's worth using on this thing? Maybe. Yeah, maybe it's worth... I don't want to use my potion because I don't think this thing is worth losing a memory over. Especially because we're looking at this thing which is born out of lack of knowledge of mind and self. So, Duragrim is not going to do that. But we do have Spotter. So you may look for a weak point in someone or something's defense. Roll a d10. On a 1 to 2, there are no weak points. 3 to 4, you find a weak point. 5, you find multiple weak points. It costs 2 steps. I think this would be a perfect opportunity to use our dexterity, right? Our swiftness, we can quickly, sort of get our bearings on our foe and ascertain if there's anything we can exploit. This does mean our dexterity is down to the very lowest again. But, it does give us an opportunity to get a leg up on this thing, which I think we desperately could use. So we're going to roll a d10 as the item or the ability instructs. A 6. You find multiple weak points, and future rolls can be done with an excellent position. Okay. We love that. What does Nar say here? Hey, Beans, can you blow all my party members' dice because they're rolling like shit? Hilarious. As much as I'd love to help, I can't actually blow on dice through the screen. I mean, Beans does speak true. Beans can only do so much without actual lips. Okay. So, make a note here. We have a good... Oh, no, we don't have good position. I think we have better than good. Excellent position. Excellent position. This is very, very useful. I'm gonna make it gold to remind me how good it is. Okay. So, I think, like, we push it off of us. Our weapon is bent. We look down, sort of, like, surprised by the damage this thing has done as we, like, look back up. And the thing is, like, you know, lurched over now and breathing heavy, and we can see it's sort of, its strange, almost like ape-like stance. It's sort of lost all sense of its humanity or dwarfanity, right? Like, it's just, it's operating on this, like, primal sort of, with vigor, and its eyes are wide, and it's breathing heavy, and it's, you know, you can almost see the heat coming off of its nostrils, which is weird, because we're cold, because we're dead. But we can now scan its body really quickly. You know, we're doing this all like off of like sort of a fighter's instinct, and we can see all the different scars. You know, it's not wearing any clothes. We can see all of the places where this thing has suffered dire damage, and it's died a lot because it's lost all of its memories, right? So we can just see every puncture wound that has been, you know, undone through undeath. We can see every tooth mark, cursed axe blade, you know, flaming whip strike from the demons we fought earlier. We can see all of that painted across its body. And now we know sort of what wounds look the most tender, the ones that looked the most fatal, and we might be able to press upon those to give us a better shot. Okay, so back to fighting this thing. Let's go back to our Duragrim. Our strength is pretty low, but now we're rolling with... Everything's a D4 now. Maybe we catch our breath? Maybe we catch our breath? It's gonna implement a complication, but then we'll have full dice. I think we do it. Alright, so when we catch our breath, all of our skills reset, but it forces a complication. So we're gonna roll a d8. What's our mechanical complication? A 7. We lose coins. We're always, like, losing coins when we're fighting this thing. Our monsters. That happened to us last time, too. Alright, so I'm gonna roll, a d8. 1 times 10, I'll say I lose 10 more coins. So how does that happen? I think since we're catching our breath, you know, the both of us are just like... and, like, we're watching each other. And it, like, you know, it makes the first move. I hear this, like, guttural, like... as it, like, lurches forward, and it's, like, pawing at all of my leathers and my satchels and, you know, my bags that I have on my person, as it's desperately trying to get a hold of those potion reagents. And as it's clawing, it manages to, like, pluck a scrape against the canvas bag holding some coins that I own. As he pops open the bag and, like, throws it aside, and we can see the canvas tear open, and you see some of the glistening gold in the firelight nearby careen off of the side of the hill and, like, disappear into the darkness below as it slides into the valley towards where the temple lies, right? So that's fine. I will gladly lose some money if it means we now get all of our skills back. So we're back in this game. We're ready to go. We have an excellent position. We are going to bop this thing in the nose with our strength. You know, our weapon is bent, but we still swing it into our hands as we're, like, wringing our gloved fingers across it. I don't mean you any harm. I know you've suffered. You've suffered as I've suffered, and you have found a worse fate. But if you force my hand, if you try it, I will strike you down. And, you know, the thing just, like, looks up with, like, bloodshot, enraged eyes as it, like, loops its hands together and just tries to hammer strike us. And we take the end of our axe gun and we try to butt it in the bottom of the chin once again. We're trying to, like, non-fatally subdue this thing as hard as we can. So we're gonna roll d6. Oh, sorry, a d8. Because I stepped it down to a d6 now. Oh, a 2! Oh! Oh, no! That is a fail. Okay. So, we're gonna... to do a fail... it says when in doubt, use a d6 for most risks. Yes, I'm gonna roll d6. Oh, he rolled a 6. He does 3 points of damage to me. Oh my god. Okay. 9, 8, 7. So we pretty much tell this thing, I don't want to hurt you, but I will if you force me. And as we, like, go to butt it in the chin, it just hammer strikes on the side of our face. We hear a sickening pop as something in our jaw gives way and dislocates under the weight of the strike. I mean, it was bending our gun. It was, like, wrecking the metal. So what did we think was going to happen to our face? But it manages to hurt us pretty dang bad. We recoil. And, you know, like, click our jaw back into place as we put our shoulder down and we just try and run and shoulder barge this thing into the rocks as hard as we can. Maybe instead of strength, we can say, since we're rushing at it, we're using speed, we can use dexterity. will help us get a little bit of a better roll at any rate. Oh, and that was a failure I should mark. I will in a second. First, I'll roll the d8s. Okay, I got a 4. That is a success. So I'm going to go back to my quest. I have 2 successes. I have 1 failure. So yes, we we click our jaw back into place. We're both eyeing each other up, and Duragrim just gives a second, and like lowers the shoulder down, rushes forward. Some dust kicks up at our heels from all the sand and the ash nearby as we plummet in the chest with our shoulder. It gets knocked back right back into the stones where we first splattered it against, as it now ricochets off of the rocks, and we don't give it a moment's rest. We rush forward with our axe haft in hand. We are gonna try once again. We're gonna go 1, 2. Oh no! No! I'm gonna use the point of inspiration. Mochi, thank you for the point of inspiration. D6. 3, yes! Bam, Mochi! Thank you, viewership out there. You succeed, but with a minor complication. Okay. Oh, my heart. This thing shouldn't be this hard. Maybe I should have made it a 3. It feels very hard right now. Oh, my God. Even with advantage, I rolled 2 1s. I guess it's just really my luck was bad. Okay. Go back to my quest. I'm just, like, frantically clicking through things. 3. Okay. So, 3. Right? 2 to 3. Oh, another point of inspiration. I will take it. I think I was at 3 successes and not 4. Okay. Oh, I typed Munchie. Thanks, Munchie. Thanks, Mochi. Hey, Fleetwood. Happy to have you here. We are wrestling, another undead dwarf. Hope we don't die. Munchie, Munchie. Munchie, Mochi. Alright. Oh my god, this thing feels so much harder than it probably should. Okay. What are we gonna do? We have to justify using a better stat. I'm gonna say... Oh yes, feed the dragons some meat, Moch. That's 2 feeds for Beans this stream. Maybe he will be bold enough to... Oh, look, he's almost level 17. Oh, you can see the level. I never realized that. So, there we go. We can get him to level 17, and he'll probably win that next dragon fight. But we gotta feed the beans. Feed the beans. Okay. So, we did suffer a slight complication for our success. Gosh, this thing is so resilient. We're gonna roll D8. 5. You stepped on your item twice. I mean, this thing is already at 0. It can't go any lower. So maybe in that case, what I'll say is that we're disarmed. Yeah, that seems about right. Disarmed. So yes, we shoulder barge it into the rocks, right? And as it's flailing, like we're preparing our axe strike to try and give it the haft into the head again, as it flails its arms upward with that inhuman strength, catches our wrists as we're trying to downward and boom, bats our hands away, and that surge of its primal energy just knocks the axe out of our hand. You see it go shing, 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 shing behind us, and then clang, 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 clatter onto the stones a little distance away. Oh, okay, so what are we gonna do? We have to try and justify using our dexterity. I think maybe we try and, like, maybe we try to get it off its feet like it tried to do to us, right? So maybe we try and, like, trip it. We try to be quicker than it and get it off its feet. So we can use our D6 now with advantage because we still have a good, excellent position. 1, 2, a 6. There we go. Yeah, I think what we do there, you know, because we're moving really quickly. I think what we see is on its on its ankle, you know, on the bottom of its leg there, or near the bottom of its leg, we see one of those terrible wounds that it suffered in life or unlife. And we just like rear our big, thick, I imagine, steel-toed boot back, and we just kick it in like this, you know, it looks like maybe at one point in one of its iterations of life, something had like hacked into its leg. There's almost like an indent in the flesh, you know, the scar is like puckered inward, and we just kick that indent as hard as we can. We're trying to make that pucker like a pair of lips, you know. We want this thing's leg to capsize underneath it if we can. So we just wail away, and we succeed. So we are one success away. I think this thing releases a howl of pain. Just an ungodly, like, you know, as we just bam right into its leg. And its whole side just sort of gives out as it drops to one knee. And that is when we are going to try and finish this off. Oh my gosh. I could use the grit, but like, what is the chance? My weapon is all the way down. I mean, I could just roll strength with advantage, and I have to roll a 3 or a 4 to succeed. I have 3 dice essentially to win on this. I have 2 regular dice because of my excellent position and a point of inspiration. Because I don't want to catch my breath again just to enter another complication, right? Or no, wait, maybe I do. Maybe I do. What's the worst that can happen? I give them a good position. That does kind of suck. We step down a skill twice. My skills are already pretty low. We lose an item. What does this mean? What do you mean? Do I catch my breath, or do I just risk it? I think I'm just gonna risk it. I have 3 dice to do this, so I'm gonna try to use strength. He gets knocked down. His hands are in the air. He's wailing in pain. It just like, you know, eyes closed, head leaned back. I'm just gonna like take both of my hands together, just like raise them up above my head, and I'm just gonna try to whap, just like straight down into his forehead. I'm gonna roll twice. 1, 2. Oh, double 3s. That is a success with a complication. I will take that. Complication. Just don't give me something too bad. Mechanical base, D8. A 2. You get a bad position, that's fine, because I will have succeeded on the challenge anyway, so it's not gonna matter. 5 out of 5 successes. So, yes, we take our hands together high above our head as this thing is, like, howling in pain as we, like, collapse its one leg. It's, like, leaning backward. And then we just staring downward. Rest easy, you forsaken thing. You know, right down into its forehead. You just see all of the life out of its eyes drain. Well, we don't kill it, but, you know, its consciousness fade. It goes cold, it goes limp. Any resistance releases with one last final gasp of as it falls backward. Thump, just like cold meat onto the stones as it is incapacitated. And we succeed. So, oh gosh. That was brutal. This thing, I think did it warrant a 5? Did it warrant a 5? I don't know. Okay. So what happens in this moment? Well, the thing is knocked unconscious. So the first thing I think we do is we, like, rummage through our pack and we find some means by which to, like, bind it, right? Probably some rope and some leathers and some of our materials and our kit that we have. I'm assuming we probably have that. I know that I don't have an item that explicitly states that I do, but I'm an adventurer. I probably have it, right? And once I have him secured, I roll him over toward the camp and towards the fire. And, I mean, this thing isn't wearing much, but I am going to try and use my loot die to see if there's anything on it. I mean, it is, like, you know, rummaging for magical reagents and other valuables from the Sisters of the Eclipse, so if it has anything on it, it probably has some semblance of usefulness. I'm gonna roll that d12. Did I roll a 1? Oh, there's trouble ahead. What more trouble? What more trouble could there be? I literally just fought off this this creature. What more trouble could there be? Okay. So, getting back into the things, disarmed. So, new update. We successfully incapacitate, watch me spell in real time, the empty remnant. Huzzah. Good for us. Yay! Progressing the story, but there is trouble ahead. ... Okay. So what is the trouble ahead? Let's look at our spark table. Spark table normally gives us some pretty good ideas of what to roll with. Spark table, spark table. Okay. We are going to roll 1 on this little verb chart, and then we're going to roll 1 on the theme chart over here. So what is the trouble? We got a 6 and a 2. Help. Okay. A 1 and a 6. Help with war. Help with war. Help with war. So what does that sound like? Well, that sounds like, to me, personally, what that sounds like to me is whatever has happened with this dwarf that we took a dwarf back to camp, right? That we didn't know that was corrupted, right? It sounds like while we were distracted and we were tending to this empty remnant which was trying to steal from us, Mochi says, "War! Oh, good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. War! Don't copyright strike me, Twitch. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again." All right, I could do that all night. I could just do that loop over and over again. Yeah, throw those L1A animated emotes into the chat if you like hearing me sing war. What is it good for ad nauseum? That'll be the next stream. Just 3 hours of me doing that one set of lyrics. Okay. What does it sound like to me? It sounds like whatever happened with this dwarf that corrupted it, that we accidentally snuck out because we didn't know that it was infested with the demon's seed, right? It sounds like that is acting up now, and we were distracted. We were fighting this remnant, trying to make sure it didn't steal anything from us, and now that we are away, the mice will play, and the mice being dwarves that are haunted by demon spawn. The next TikTok sensation, listen, I'll take it. I won't be mad if that happens. Okay. So I think what we hear then, we're like rummaging through The satchels, like, it probably has, like, its loincloth, and maybe it has, like, a loose rope belt where it has some, like, canvas bags and, like, leather satchels that it's probably plucked off of other people and, like, stolen from other offering bowls and remnants and things like that. We rifle through the items, but honestly, there's nothing there that is worth anything. That's probably the reason why it was hunting us in the first place. There's maybe, like, a few empty shells from, like, gnawed on, like, nuts and, like, half disintegrated leaves and, like, empty stems. There's nothing in here that we could convert into any sort of semblance of useless. Probably, like, a few loose stones and pebbles and rocks and, like, little curiosities that this thing found that it just thought was, like, unique and, like, squirreled away because it's, like, operating on lizard brain mode. But nothing that is going to be of any use to us trying to survive a demon apocalypse. And as we're sort of, like, taking stock of everything that just happened, and we go, you know, scavenge our bent weapon off of the ground and, like, do as quickly a good a job as we can to, like, salvage it, we hear a piercing cry from the direction of the camp. As, like, a bunch of, you know, what's the word? Hubbub and commotion is, like, rolling and murmuring through the refugees nearby. And Duragrim, you know, has to give a steely gaze out in the direction of the firelight of the camp in the distance. By all the lords of the stone. And, like, begins to, like, hustle his way over there. We're going to be forced to catch our breath in this moment because we didn't last at the end of the last thing, and all of our stats are really low again, turns out. We don't get our item stepped up. We have to wait until a rest to step our item up, unfortunately, so that's still a D4. But, oh, we do have this healing item. Interesting. Should we... Maybe that's what we do before we go in. Why not? We picked it up last session. We picked up this, like, dwarven idol from the temple, right? This dwarven item from the temple that, it's, like, from the old faith of the dwarves, like, worshipping all the ancestors inside the stone. So it's, like, this, like, rude, like, this crudely carved, dwarven-shaped, sort of, mortal-shaped idol that has, like, some, dwarven runes etched across it. And I'm gonna roll its item die, which is a D6. Which means I have to step it down. When I rolled a 5, that's pretty good. So I'll say that it's D4 now. And I'm going to treat it like it's the inverse of an attack. So I rolled a 5 or higher. So instead of dealing 3 hits of damage, I'm going to heal 3 points of damage, right? So I'm going to go back to my stats. Where's my skills? I'm going to put my health back up to 10. So hey, whatever's happening in this place, something's gonna happen. At least I'll have some extra hit points to throw around. I think what that looks like too is, like, you know, as we're whispering, like, by all that reside within the stone, and, like, that, like, pricks something in our mind, and we're looking at our body, which has just been bruised and battered a bit by this empty remnant. We reach down into our satchel and we look at the idol, and we can feel the thrum of, like, the ancient power that resides within. And we clutch it and we hold it close to us, and we murmur another dwarven prayer. We say, "Those who have passed before us, those who have been returned to the depths, who now reside within the rock and earth. Give me your strength. Let not my flesh yield. Bring me the courage to face this foe. And like as we're like saying all these things to ourselves, we can like feel our flesh harden. We can feel the bruising on our flesh subside as some of the damage which we just incurred is undone, as these dwarven sigils give off like a strange sort of like amber light, you know, sort of glows within our palm. And we feel the weariness leave our body from just moments before. We slip the idol into our pack. We ready our bent weapon as we rush down into the fray, right? So, the help with war. Help with war. What does that mean? You know? What does that mean, really? It means that this thing is probably... What does this thing do that helps with war? That is very interesting. I kind of want to roll again on the spark table to maybe give me like another cool idea. Or do I maybe try to do something with the Oracle? There's so many options to help me generate new plot points. Sometimes it's like hard to know how I want this to guide me. I guess we could roll a complication. Help with war definitely sounds like this thing is taking some sort of aggressive action toward... Oh, help with war. Okay, wait. I think I have an idea. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the quest. So we know that the last time we saw these refugees and the thing that we liberated from the prison, that the demons were taking dwarves to be sacrificed for some unknown end. We don't know. They're part of some ritual that's deeper in the temple. We don't know what that is. But we know this thing is like corrupted by demons, right? Actually, I'm going to say, hey, Beans, our AI Twitch assistant, give me the name for a dwarf, a fantasy dwarf, who has defected from the side of good to the evil forces. And let's see what Beans gives us here. Beans is thinking, generating us some. How about Morgath Stonebreaker? Beans says it has a certain level of gravitas and hints at the dwarf's former allegiance to the forces of good. What do you think, chat? I think Morgath sounds pretty cool. Sounds pretty villainous. Morgath Stonebreaker. Okay, so we heard a piercing cry come from the camp. And we know that the demons were trying to sacrifice people, and that this dwarf was corrupted by his captors before the escape. So when I hear help with war, what that translates into my mind is that this thing, maybe because of a bit of like, I don't know, maybe like Stockholm syndrome, or maybe because it has committed itself to worship of the demons, you know, in the time that he's escaped, you know, and the presence has gotten stronger, right? The desperation has gotten stronger. Why, for whatever reason, this thing sees an opportunity to be rewarded, right? Morgath sees, hey, if I come back to the demon, because we do know there are dwarves that throw their lot in with the demons. They become their servants, right? But they become elevated. They become their soldiers, and they get to live lives in this hellscape. They're evil lives, but they get to live their lives. We've fought some of those soldiers before. maybe Morgath thinks, hey, if I come back to the temple and I come back with some prisoners, escaped prisoners, maybe I have a pretty good chance of buying myself, you know, curry some favor. Okay, and so I think what happens here is we hear like a cry from the camp. And let's see, I'm gonna see if we can sneak in. I'm gonna see if we can't be noticed. I'm gonna roll a D. We're gonna leave our empty remnant at the fire, our personal fire, bound for now, which we'll see if that has any untoward complications later. But for now, other situations are taking precedence. We're gonna roll our D8. We got a 3, which is a success with a complication, if I'm not mistaken. So, right? Yep. Okay, so we're being careful. So roll our complication. Yeah, we forgot a detail. Which makes sense given the situation. Morgath Stonebreaker wants to hand over the refugees back to the demons to be rewarded, right? So that's the help with the war. And now we forgot, or actually, 2. We're being careful, but we're also trying to be kind of quick while we're being sneaky. I kind of like the 2 result on quick more. We only partially got there. That kind of makes me think that, like, that maybe we got there a little bit too late, you know? Okay, I like that better. So instead of we forgot a detail, we only partially got there. We got a little late. So that is, we partially got there a little late. But we did arrive sneaky, because we did succeed. Arrived sneaky. I'm going to say that probably gives us a slightly better position on the upcoming rolls, right? We're coming out of stealth. At least probably for the first one, because once we're seen, we're seen. But I'll say for the first roll in this challenge, first roll, we have excellent position. Whatever we decide to do, right? So what I'm hearing here is we got there partially late. I'm gonna put on the more dramatic song right here. We hear a scream. We hurry back as quickly and quietly as we can, and we press our back up against the stone. We're like taking a few deep breaths. We're checking our weapon. It is obviously damaged, but it's still serviceable. We, get some flechette ready and some buckshot. And then we swing the gun over the hillside to, like, get a bead down into the camp, like, into the broken stone battlements of this old settlement that we've turned into a makeshift camp. But we don't see any demons. Instead, what we find is a bunch of the dwarves have sort of huddled into a corner. They've all pressed their backs against, like, one of the dilapidated stone walls of the old settlement in fear, right? And they're all back there, including Hilda. Hilda's, bundled up in that big gaggle of people. Then, in between where they're all huddled up, in, like, the center of the courtyard, right, is one dwarf who is lying cold on the stones, right? And there is a pool of blood which has formed around the body. Quite obviously dead, right? Or at least and because it's such a recent strike, it was a fatal blow. But, you know, they're still writhing on the ground in pain. They're about to lose life. But they're essentially been dealt their death blow. And then, on the other side of that person who is bleeding out, we have Morgath, right? And Morgath, what do I see when I think of the word Morgath? I'm thinking a person who has, like, a wild mane of hair, but, like, balding on top, right? Like, it's all on the sides and the back, you know? And we have this really long black beard that maybe has, like, 2 really thick braids down on the side of the mustache. And it's also, like, a stripe of gray that's, like, running through the center, you know, down and, like, maybe on the temples as well. And they're wearing, you know, just, like, rags, essentially. But you can see that hidden within those rags, in some way, what's the word, chaos that ensued with them being captured, they've managed to create and hide, like, a makeshift shank. You know, like a little dagger that's been, like, whittled out of some stone that they've scavenged during their captivity, wrapped in, like, a bit of the cloth that they were wearing, like, cut off as, like, a makeshift handle. And Morgath is holding it in the direction of the others, and it's dripping blood, right? And you can see Morgath is, like, levying the blade towards anyone else, towards the rest of the dwarves. Anyone else? Huh? Anyone else think that they know better? Can do better? Sort of, like, waving it back and forth. And all of the dwarves are like, Morgath, don't do this. You don't have to do this, son. You know, like, sort of, like, all yelling. Oh, wait, what is Mochi asking you to do, Beans? So it's great to see you hanging out on the stream. Got to ask you, such a dedicated viewer. He knows that you're a dedicated viewer. What's your favorite part of watch tabletop streams? Oh, yeah. Mochi says making Wolf say silly things or sing war. That's your favorite part? What's your favorite part of this RPG stream? Not the RPG part. It's when Wolf does something stupid or silly. That's fair. So yeah, you can see a bunch of the dwarves sort of chastising Morgath as, like, he's holding the blade. We all know it's a matter of time. We can't win against these demons. They're stronger than us. They've claimed the dwarf holds. Resistance, running, this is all for naught. The only thing we can do, the smart thing that we should do, is give ourselves unto them. Deliver them, the true defectors. The true betrayers. Look, as he, like, points down towards the dwarf who's bleeding out. This is someone who is weak, who would look upon the doom of Mount Baram and see a position that they couldn't find victory, and there is no victory here. Strength can only be found with the ranks of those that came from below. And I intend to take some of that strength for myself. Now, you can come with me willingly, and I suggest those of you who are doubting your position here, join me and deliver those who would defy our superiors back to the temple. You have seen what they can do for our kind if we join with them. We will be fed, we will be strong, we will be safe. But defy them, and we will end up no better than Bromir, as he, like, points down to Hilda, and Hilda, like, looks upward with, like, enraged eyes. Don't you speak his name, Morgath, don't you? And you can see, like, Morgath, like, shakes the shank in her direction. Quiet yourself, woman! I will speak whosever name I please. You know this is the way. This is truth. Bromir
was just one of many who could not know their place. I know my place, and that is at the side of the fire and the flames. That is truth. That is salvation. So those of you who have the wits to join me, come to the side and help us ferry the rest of these fools to our new gods. Forsake the stone. Embrace the fire. That is how we survive.
And you can, like, hear some of the dwarves, like, murmuring to each other and looking between each other. Abandon the stone, forsake the stone, embrace the fire of the demons. Could it be true? Could it be? And they're all murmuring, and, you know, this is one of those situations where it could be pretty salty, because it does look like some of these dwarves who are broken spiritually may find some truth in Morgath's words. So I think what we first have to do, we do have our first excellent position. So what does this mean? What is this? So we're going to face a challenge right now. I would say this is once again a risky challenge, right? I don't think Morgath is as strong as, like, a demon monster. Probably as strong as the thing we just fought, if anything, right? It's dangerous. It's risky in the sense, too, that if we fail, it's not precarious, right? It's not just like an inconvenience. It isn't mortally dangerous to us, maybe, but depending on how things end up, this could spell doom for the rest of the refugees. You know, they could be delivered back to the demons, and if the demons get them after they've escaped, there's obviously going to be terrible ramifications for them. So I think this is dangerous, at least, right? Or risky, I should say. So we need 5 successes before 3 failures. And so what do we do here? What do we do? I think the first thing that we do is we have to try and break up. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. There's a chance that if we don't get this right, that if we don't out-talk Morgath in front of these refugees right now, that some of them may actually start believing in what Morgath is saying, and they will. So I think that, actually, here's what I think. I think the challenge actually hasn't started yet, because the risk here is just fighting Morgath, right? Just fighting Morgath and trying to make sure none of the other people get hurt, right? But if I fail in talking him down, right, that means it's going to be Morgath plus whoever decides that Morgath's way is right, right? Multiple refugees who defect. And that would make the challenge dangerous, because I'd be fighting more than one person at a time. So I think this first challenge that I'm going to do is not a part of the skill challenge itself, but it will set the precedent of the difficulty for the rest of the challenge, if that makes sense. I think it does. So it really depends on how bad I want this to succeed. Here's the thing. In my mind's eye, using willpower would be the check, I would say, would be to convince the people that they should not listen to Morgath's words, right? But my willpower is terrible, and even with this first advantage on my stealth roll, like announcing myself from the darkness, I'm not feeling very confident about that. There's a part of me that wants to use my grit. I only get it once per day, But assuming I defuse this dangerous situation, I'm gonna finish my rest anyway and get it back. So I think I use the grit. It sucks. I only get one a day, but it's a D12. That's a huge chance of success coming out of my excellent position. I think that's what it has to be. I don't want to lose this check. I don't want to fight multiple people at once. So I'm going to roll my D12 twice. 1, 2. Oh, hell yeah. I take the higher result. 11. Get out of here. That is a super success. So we are keeping, if we go to the quest, so we manage to out-talk? Sure, out-talk Morgath. Okay. So, Morgath gives his big speech about forsake the stone, embrace the flames. And some of the dwarves are now reconsidering their positions and if they would be better off, you know, betraying their kinsmen and bartering them back to the demons for their elevation. And then from the darkness, you know, Duragrim's voice breaks the camp. Forsake the stone, you say? And like all the dwarves, like, you know, like they gasp, not knowing that Duragrim was in the shadows. And Morgath spins around, you know, shwing, with the stone shank in the air, still bloodied with the blood of his fellows. It's surprised. How quickly are ye to abandon what was once sacred in hopes of saving your own hide? And you can see Morgath, you know, snickers. Save? What is there to save, remnant? You yourself should know better than anyone. You have watched the ages pass. You have watched the dwarf holds fall. You have seen us break down into dust and pebble. We once were mountains, and we could be again, you know, yells Duragrim back in response as the people, like, shudder. I have seen what has befallen our people. I have suffered it firsthand, more than most, more than you will ever know. And from that pain, what I have seen is resilience, is foundation, not weakness. Do you know of what has befallen the lands outside of Mount Baram? The forests of the elf folk, the rivers and towns of the men. They have not withstood the pain, the fire, as we have. Hell awoke beneath our feet. It lurched up from the belly of Mount Baram. It stole our homeland, and yet we stand firmer than all the others who has tasted their burning blades. Do you not believe that with that strength, with the stone in our bones, in our blood, that we will not triumph over this foe? I give you it may take time, ages. I may pass into dust before I see it done. But dwarf will not fall to the hell spawn. Oh no. We will rebuild. We will take the stones of the graves of our forefathers, and from those tombs shall rise a new kingdom. And it will happen with or without ye, Morgath Stonebreaker, but it will happen. So you ask if I will forsake the stone.
No. But I will extinguish this fire. And if you have sworn yourself to the service of Fire Morgoth, then I will extinguish ye.
And we just, like, let that hang over the camp, you know? And I think we, through a combination of fear and inspiration, right, all of the dwarves who were reconsidering joining Morgath's wild plot, his wild scheme, now find firmament in the words of Duragrim, as they, like, now take more defiant postures and more defiant stances, and they stand forward with their chest puffed out proud. I will not forsake the stone, says Hilda, of course, because she's like, she has big main character energy first. I will not forsake the stone. I will not forsake the stone. I will not forsake the stone. You know, you hear like a chorus of people beginning to join. And then Morgoth like looks over his shoulder, sort of losing his nerve now. Silence! Silence! You will see. You all will see as Morgoth like turns back towards Duragrim. First, I'll deal with you, Remnant. I will send you back to whatever cold hole that you call home, cursed as you are by the witches of the eclipse. And then, with your savior slain, says Morgoth over his shoulder, I will prove to these people that the stone shall not be their salvation. And, with you out of the way, whoever won't fall in line will fall prey to the fire. And I think with that, like, Morgoth spins the blade up into his hand in, like, a position ready to fight. And now we are going toe-to-toe with Morgoth. I think that is now... I think the others aren't going to join. We've riled them out of their fearful state. I don't think they're probably willing to join the fight, given that Morgoth just gutted one of their fellows, but they're not at least going to, Actually, you know what? Maybe what we'll say is, I think that gives us a good position, actually. They might not join the fight, but they will be chanting like, I will not forsake the stone, you know? And they'll be like jeering and like yelling curses at Morgoth, which is gonna like break his resolve, right? You know, it's gonna make the fight harder for him. It's kind of the inverse of what would have happened if we failed. Before, we were gonna have to have a hard time because we're fighting more defectors. Now we have a better time fighting because Morgoth has to like suffer the chants and the emboldened words of the people who he tried to convert. So let's start this challenge, shall we? Okay. So the first thing is that I think Morgoth, you know, he's the one who like spun the blade into his hand, and he's gonna rush us with his knife pointed in our direction. Curses on ye, Remnant! Curses to the grave! And I'm gonna see if we can't outmaneuver him with a little dexterity. I'm gonna try and use not our best skills first, before we have to catch our breath, before we have to rely on our strength, right? So we have a good position. Oh, a good position, which means we can actually roll one die higher, right? We don't get the double roll. Yeah, we roll one step higher. So a 6 is actually a D8. Okay, so let's roll our D8 and hopefully we get something good. A 6! That's real good, baby. That's real good. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So a 6 is, I think that's just straight up success, no other complications. Yeah, greatly succeed. So that is 1 out of, excuse me, 5. So yes, I think he like runs forward at us like, to the grave! and we, like, just, like, quickly sidestep him. We don't even try to attack him yet. We just, like, give him a wide berth as he, like, swings through the air and, like, just catches the back end of our cloak as he, like, flips the blade back to, like, get into another position. And all around him you can hear, "I will not forsake the stone! I will not forsake the stone!" You know, as they begin to, like, fan out into, like, a little circle around us, a little fight circle. As Duragrim, you know, just with a confident smile, just dodging that first blade, just holding the axe gun against his chest. "Do you see, Morgoth? You are alone here. There is no hope for your misguided path. Turn away from it while you still have the chance, and I may yet spare your life." And then Morgoth, you know, sort of like fuming. "You know nothing, Remnant. You are a pawn. You are a thrall of witches. You are an implement of doom. You can't speak truth here. You are lies made flesh," and like runs forward and whoom, tries to take another bite of Duragrim with the blade. I think now because we have the D4 now, we're rolling a D6. Yeah, maybe because we can't go lower than a D4 unless our position gets really bad. So maybe we could just keep, like, dodging him and deflecting him. Maybe we don't even have to attack him. We might be able to tire him out and, like, break his confidence. That would be interesting. Okay. So I'm going to roll a D6. Which is another 6? Hell yeah. So he rushes at us, you know, tries to, like, strike us again. This time we, like, pull the axe gun from our chest and we manage to catch the tip of his shank with, like, the edge of the axe gun and, like, swing it downward and, like, we parry the blow and, like, we spin to face him again as he, like, loses his footing for a second and then quickly redraws back and, you know, like, flips the shank back into his hand. "I will not forsake the stone! I will not forsake the stone!" all around us. Duragrim shakes his head. "I am not lies incarnate, Morgoth. I am many things. A failure, a monster. But I do not tell you untruths on this sacred ground. The lies are what you believe will be your rescuing in the arms of our oppressors. In the demons, Morgoth. Listen to yourself." You know, more, "I will not forsake the stone." 20th OD. Hey, y'all, been a while. Yes, it has. 20th, happy to have you here. "I will not forsake the stone," all around. Morgoth is beginning to lose a bit of his, you know, his steel, a bit of his bite, as he's, like, looking back and forth to all the others chanting, "Shut up! Shut up!" He's, like, waving the, you know, the shank in their direction as they, like, shiver and, like, they draw back for a moment, but then, you know, another one of their fellows will put an arm around them and, like, pull them back into the fray. "I will not forsake the stone." And then, you know, Morgoth, like, points the blade back in Duragrim's direction. "It was you, wasn't it? Of course it was. These witches. For years they spoke of the doom of Mount Baram. And then it erupts, it belches fire and pain and death upon the land. And you think you are exempt from it? No. I do not speak lies. It is your witch mothers who speak lies, and you can just not see it, for your eyes are shadowed in their deceitful tongues." And then once again rushes forward, blade forward. "I will not forsake the stone." We're just going to keep chanting it. We're going to try and do another dodge. Swing, swing. Oh, I should roll the one time, not twice. But it was a 4. Lowest is a 4, which is still a success, but with a minor complication. So we are going to suffer something here. We're going to roll a D8. We were being quick. We were dodging, which is a 5. We left a trace. Huh. We left a trace. That kind of sounds to me like maybe Morgath catches up to us. You know? Like we were evading him pretty quickly before, which was giving him a really good position. But that last strike was swift enough, like we weren't quick enough. So he catches us a bit, not enough to do like damage, but I think that might force us to give up our good position. I think, you know what I mean? Like now, I think what happens is like he yells that, he lurches forward, we go to dodge him again, and as we do, you know, Morgath has been calculating. He's been watching our moves. He knows that if it were, he's seen us parry his knife a couple times. That's what he knows that we're looking for. But instead, Morgath like runs forward at the last minute, like kicks outward and like catches our foot as we're trying to dodge and like knocks our legs out from underneath us, right? And there's a gasp of like, ugh, from Duragrim as he like falls on one knee. And now Morgath like is now much closer, is like on top of us now with the blade. So we don't have as much room to maneuver. And you hear like gasps from the people, like as they think like something is desperately terrible gonna happen. Duragrim still manages to like get his bearings before Morgath can like go for the jugular or anything like that. But I think we're a bit slower now. We're off our A game, and we have lost our good position, right? So we're just rolling normal. I think that's fair for that complication. So like we lose our footing a bit as we like look upward just in time to like brace ourselves before Morgath can get like his death blow, as like a grim smile like stretches across his bearded face. Ah, not so confident are you now, witch-born, dead thing, abomination, you know, like cursing us. And like Duragrim like shakes his head. Morgath, still your tongue. I will not. You say you are a failure. I say you're a failure. Failure of dwarf kind. Look upon your breast, he says as he points at like all the gold medallions that like we wear on our armor, right? That are like dilapidated now, they're older, but they do harken back to the old dwarf nobility, right? We were an old dwarf noble before we died. You held these halls. You were Thane once, and now you are thrall. How many of our kinsfolk, our fathers, our forefathers, did you let die because of your weakness? And, you know, to this, like, Duragrim says, silence! And, like, you know, swings outward. I think at this point, Morgath has stemmed us on enough that maybe we're gonna get a little angry. We're gonna swing the axe gun in his direction. Doesn't mean we're going for fatal, but we are gonna swing it. So we have a D8 normally. Oh, but normally we just lost our good position, so this is a normal roll. So it will just be a D8. A 1. A 1. Do I keep the 1 or do I use the inspiration? Do I keep the 1 or do I use the inspiration? It's a major complication if not. A major complication if not. What do I have? What do I have left in me? I still have a D6. I still have a point of inspiration. Maybe I just take the complication because I can still use the D6. Or, maybe I'll take the complication. Okay. So I'll let Morgath make a roll against me. He got a 5, which is going to be 3 damage, and I'm going to roll an 8 for the complication. You're forceful. Oh, bro. You get a bad position. Okay. So we're going to take damage and get a bad position. Oh, no. Oh no. Oh no. Is this where things not go our way? Is this where things start getting really bad? Okay. So Duragrim takes 3 damage. He just lost the 3 that he gained from the last healing item dose. And that's a failure. Well, with a fight, actually, I don't think we have to track failures. We have to track our HP. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And we get a bad position. Which means we are going to roll... Oh, that's real. We can't keep the bad... Oh, we should study this guy for weak points. We can use Spotter on him. Okay. So what does that mean, though, for us in the fiction? We swing out, we say, silence! And, like, we swing outward, right? And we take a wild swing. And I think, you know, Morgath was anticipating this. It does a lot of damage to us. I think, like, we swing wide, and he, like, ducks under our blade and, like, sinks the dagger, like, up into the meat of our arm, like, as we're swinging. And once again, we don't bleed, but, like, there's, like, this hollow pop sound, like, this leathery pop, as, like, some dark, dark smoke and, like, ash, like, pours out of our flesh. And, like, he, like, stabs it with our one hand, and as we're, like, retching from that blow, he takes, like, the back end of our collar, like, of our armor, and just, like, throws us on the ground, right? As we roll across the stones, and some of the people even, like, gasp, and they, like, widen out the circle to accommodate for the fight, right? As, like, we get, like, thrown across the bottom of the camp, and you can, like, hear them. They were chanting before, like, I will not forsake the stone, but, like, some of them are, like, mid-chant, like, I will not forsake, like, they, like, huh? Like, they lose their momentum there for a moment. Oh, God. We get our bad position. As, like, well, I think in Morgath throwing us, he probably, you know, like, took the blade out of our arm. As we, like, slide on our hands and knees, sort of like, as, like, cold, dark dust comes out of our mouths, since we don't bleed normal blood. And then Morgath, like, opens his arms wide and, like, turns back towards the crowd. You see? He does not even bleed your blood. He is no longer kin. He is no longer dwarf. He is puppet. He is smoke and ash and lies. To put your faith in him, to put your faith in a tool of these witches over me, over someone you have bled with, you have suffered with, who is only looking out for your survival. How could you? What say you? There is still time. There is still, and, like, you know, at this point, like, Dorgrim, like, wrestles himself back up to his feet. Don't listen to him. He will say anything. Anything to have you give yourselves to these hellspawn, to sacrifice what is left of your dignity and your goodness. Do not give it to him. He does not deserve it. What he deserves is penance and death for what he has wrought. Wrought upon your friends, your family, as he points down. We're, like, fighting over the corpse of this other dwarf, which he just killed, like, minutes before. Do not let his words steal truth from his actions. Dwarf blood was spilled this day, and it was by his hand. And then, with that, like, Morgath spins around. Quiet, old man. Or do I have to what? Think in my brain for improv words. Or do I have to close those cold lips for you? And then, like, you know, Duragrim settles back into a fighting position, a bit more weary now. If you're to take these words from my lips, it will need to be through death, Morgoth. This can be arranged. As like Morgoth prepares for another strike. In this moment, I think we're going to use one of our abilities, because we need to get out of this bad position. We are going to use... Oh boy. Two things are going to happen here. We're going to catch our breath, we're going to use our ability. So catching our breath is going to re-up all of our stats. We're immediately going to use our ability, which will put us back down 2 steps. So we'll be back to a D4 on dexterity. But it's going to give us a chance to roll a die, to study him for weaknesses, and it's going to trigger a complication. But I'll take the complication if it means we can get a winning position out of this scenario. So number 1, we're going to roll the complication. It's a 1. We take a hit. Okay. So we're going to suffer a point of damage in this somehow. But that's fine. We still have some health to play with. We have 6 health to play with. But... well, I guess a hit doesn't necessarily imply damage. It just implies a hit. So I guess we should roll a d6 and see... Why'd I say that? Why'd I say that? Why'd I say that? What'd I roll? A 6? A 5? That's gonna be like a bunch of damage on me. Yeah, it's gonna be 3 damage on me. Why'd I say that? 6, 5, 4. Okay, I'm at 4 health. Great, less than half. It's been a rough night for Duragrim. Alright, back to... I will not forsake the stone. I will not forsake the stone. Thank you, Mochi. Yes, give it up to chat. Chant in the chat if you believe. It's like Tinkerbell when you clap. Clap if you believe. Chant if you believe. You will not forsake the stone. Alright, here's what's gonna happen. Oh, silly wolf, you never know what he'll say next, right? Maybe it was just all part of the shenanigans. No, Beans, it's because I'm dumb, and I've punished myself with my own stupidity. That's what that was. Alright. So, we're gonna roll our ability, which allows us to study our enemy, which is a d10. However, I do have a point of inspiration on this, so I'm glad I saved it, because if I roll bad on my ability, I can roll twice. And that's going to be huge. So thank you, Mochi, for the point of inspiration, and thank you, me, for having the foresight to save it until now. So I'm going to roll a d10. First shot, here we go. A 3's not bad. A 3's not bad. You find a weak point, and future rolls can be done with a good position. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take good over bad. That's roll one thing higher. I'm not going to use my inspiration. I would use the inspiration on a fail. I will not use it on a minor success, right? So what does this mean? We do suffer a hit during this, but we see a weak point. So what is the weak point? I think what we see now, because we've dodged a few of his attacks, and then he got one over on us, and then... So we've been watching him fight. And I think the weak point is not so much like a physical pain or issue or defect or anything like that. What I think it is we've watched his fighting enough to know he's predictable. You know, he's strong and he's crafty, but he's hungry, he's desperate, and he's fallen into this pattern where it's sort of like strike, something tricky, like kick our leg, you know. Strike, talk us down, you know? And we're beginning to get a read on how this guy fights. And I think that may be just the opening we need, that knowledge of his predictability, which is going to give us the foresight to come out on top, right? So we have a good position now. We have all of our stats back. So I think that means we can keep fighting the good fight. I think at this point, Duragrim, we're going to look at our character info for a second. Duragrim, his motivation is that he's vengeful, and his flaw is that he's moody, right? I think there was a time in this fight where Duragrim might have spared Morgath had he listened to reason, had he not been so adamant about murdering Duragrim and like hurting his kinsmen. At this point though, Duragrim has almost been like gutted twice, and he's looking at a dwarf who has been killed by Morgath, and he's looking in the eyes of Morgath. He's just studied him up and down, and he sees there is nothing about this excuse of a man, not a man, right? There is nothing about this pathetic creature that can be salvaged nor saved, nor would he want to save him even if there could. This is a person who has pledged himself to demon spawn, who has tried to get the other dwarves to forsake the stone, and as chat knows, I will not forsake the stone. Right? So I think at this point, so we study him, and you know, we just had a little witty repartee about, like, if you have to steal my breath, it will be through death and all this stuff. And, like, you know, the blade work. And so I think Morgath is watching us study him long and hard. And in his mind, he's seeing us lose a little bit of our nerve, right? He's seeing us slow down. And he's like, you finally getting wise, old man? You ready to turn around and march into the wastes? Leave us behind? Let do with fate what is to be done here? And like, as he's, Mochi says long and hard, slow down. There's no floors in this chat yet, Mochi. There's no floors that need to worry about climaxing in this chat. Don't worry. He's like sort of watching us, you know, slow down and like watch him, and he's getting overconfident. And it's been quiet, right? Because twice now they've seen Duragrim suffer 2 really deep blows, and the confidence is being sort of shaken here, right? And Duragrim like looks upward with that like cold, dark stare. I will not forsake the stone. And Morgath just says, like, tilts his head. What did you say? I will not forsake the stone. And like takes like his like axe gun and like thump, like thumps it on the earth beneath him, and this like shakes and riles up some of the people watching, right? Oh, would you give it a I will not forsake the stone, thunk, and like thunks it again. And then like the others start finding their renewed hope in this, right? Before they were losing it a bit, and they all slam their feet down now in syncopation with like Duragrim's pounding. I will not forsake the stone. I will not forsake the stone. You know, it's like vibrating the stones around Morgath as he's like looking back and forth. Fools! Idiots! Fine. If the only way I will prove to you that this misguided mantra can be disproven is to kill you, then kill you, I will! And like finally like lunges forward. But we have all of our strength back, and we're fighting at a good position. So we're letting him, he's like losing his head now. He's getting sloppy. We've read him up and down, and so now we're gonna strike. So with a good position, we can roll a die higher. If we're rolling a d8 normally, it's now a d10. Roll the die. Oh god, no, we're not taking another one. I'm using a point of inspiration. I am using a point of inspiration. Thank you, Mochi, because I'm not eating another one, because that could be 3 more damage, and there's I can't risk that. Okay, come on, point of inspiration. Don't fail me now. 6! Get out of here. Get out of here. You gross man. Okay, 4 out of 5 successes. This thing is almost donezo. All right, let's go back. And then this thing probably should have been a level 3 fight too. I'm really bad at risk assessment. Like, this is just a dude. Like, it's like a scary dude, but it's just a dude. Oh, point of inspiration. Thank you, Mochi. I was gonna delete that that inspiration point, but now I don't even have to. Look at this. I'll go 0, 1. Thanks, Mochi. He's lunging at us, and we can see now, we can read his arm from a mile away. As he lunges forward, we're pounding on the stone, right? We sort of lunge to the side and swing upward with the back of the haft, and we knock it right into his wrist. And you hear this blood-curdling pop as something like in the wrist just like gives out, right? And like goes limp as like the blade like falls to the side a little bit, and Morgath lets out a howl of pain. Oh, and like falls forward now, has to brace both hands on the blade to like keep it steady, as Duergrim like swings into a better position, now holding the axe fully in hand, and like swings it upward above his head. I will not forsake the stone! And like swings downward, and we're gonna try and finish this fight. We're gonna roll this D8 because we normally have a D6, but we're rolling with a good position, right? So we roll the D8 for a 4, which I believe is a success with a minor complication, which I will take. We were being forceful. So a 6 is we lost some reputation. Interesting. We lost some reputation. I think what that means, I think I know what that means. That's an interesting fail state. Because it's true that we talked the dwarves out of not forsaking their ancestry, but Morgath made a really competitive argument about us being like the thrall of witches, and these people already don't trust remnants to begin with. So I think there's a very good chance that even if we win this fight, which we just did, that we don't win over the hearts of the refugees, right? We might have saved them, but, allegiances are fleeting in an apocalypse, right? So I think what happens here, we win. So Duergrim swings the axe over his head. I will not forsake the stone! And like swings it downward. And, Morgath tries to like weakly bring his arm up to like brace against the axe with the blade. But his hand is already weakened. It's this like, this shank, which has already like suffered a few blows that it was not supposed to. I think the axe just cleaves right through the stone. The axe keeps going downward, and sinks catches Morgath like right here in the lip, down through the throat, and like into the chest cavity. You just hear the sort of like hollowed like, as it just like buries itself into like this upper torso area, and there is like there's a death rattle that escapes from like a lip that is like partially cleaved in two, right? Talking about stealing breath with death, thematic circle here, right? You can hear sort of a death rattle escape Morgath with it as like blood like leaks out of the wound, and Duergrim just like shakes his head and like releases like whispers like an old dwarven curse, right? Like cursing the name and the blood of the Stonebreakers for the treachery of their forebear here, and then just drives the axe down and just like carries, I should say, the body, the corpse of Morgath down onto the earth, and then pull the axe out of his body and swing it over his shoulder, breathing heavily, deeply, raggedly, but manages to defeat Morgath in this moment, which is the final success we needed for that challenge. Whew. I think I overestimated. I think now, if an enemy is like even somewhat mortal, it should be a 3. Because both of those 5s were a lot. Both of those 5s felt like mini bosses. Holy hell. Okay. So a couple things we have to bear in mind here. So we won our fight. Yay, we won our fight. ... But we lose reputation with the refugees. They see us now as witch thrall and abomination. Those are some of the words, the dying words that Morgath left us with. So what happens here? You know, I think with the final death stroke delivered to Morgath, you know, there is a mixture of reactions. Some, of course, stand on their feet and like cheer and like, you know, and whisper, and some whisper under their breath like, "I will not forsake the stone," like tears in their eyes, you know, seeing like some sort of poetic success in Duragrim triumphing over Morgath. But some murmur, you know, and they watch Duragrim with uneasy eyes, and you hear, you know, under their breath like, "Witch thrall, sisters of the eclipse, monster," you know, like, oh, like, and Duragrim is well accustomed to having those whispers behind his back, but, you know, they never get easier to endure, I don't think. After a few moments have passed and the fight has dispersed and people start, you know, they drag the corpse of, well, there's 2 corpses to be dragged. There is one corpse, that of their fellow refugee who was slain by Morgath, right? Probably a person who tried to defy him in some way. We might have covered that earlier. But then there's also the corpse of Morgath, which I think is Duragrim's responsibility. I think Duragrim takes it upon himself to dispose of Morgath. Not only because he felled him, and I don't think anybody else wants to touch the body of the betrayer, but 2, I want to loot him. And I think, you know, it would be hard for Duragrim to maintain some of his decorum with the people if he was like patting down the pockets of this recently killed person. I don't know. In this world, maybe not. Maybe people are used to just watching someone die and then someone else being like, "What's in his pockets?" But, you know, Duragrim comes from a different time. A time when that thing would have been frowned upon. And so he will try his best to honor that. So we're going to roll this D10 now for the loot. We got a 3. That seems like something. We got a D4 depletable item. Ah, we like getting items. Items are fun. So let's go to our items. We got I'm going to put some numbers on here. 2, 1, 3. So this is going to be a D4. Just put 2 L's here. A D4 depletable item. But what do we find? What do we find? Let's go to our sparks, and we're gonna roll a verb and a theme, as we normally do, and see if we can get an idea. First thing is the verb, a 2-2. Serve, interesting. Makes sense, given that this guy's a demon worshiper, secret demon worshiper. And we're gonna roll another 4-1. Revenge. Serve revenge. That sounds like a weapon. But if it was a weapon, then Morgath probably would have used it, right? Like, there'd be no like, he wouldn't have used his, like, dinky little stone knife if he had something that was more impressionable, right? Or useful. So, to serve revenge. What does that sound like to me? What's something else you use to serve revenge with? Maybe poison, right? That's a way that you serve revenge to someone. You poison them. And we already have established in this world that, like, people making potions and alchemical things is a thing, right? Mostly it's, like, people who are trained in the ways of, like, of witchdom, like Duragrim. But there's still probably people who can make regular poultices and make, you know, toxic extracts out of, you know, the plants. Like, we described how since the world has become infested with demons, that even the plants have kind of, like, transformed into these malefic forms. So, yeah, maybe we find, like, a couple, like, we find a bunch of, I'm gonna call it Felspore powder. Right, that sounds like, Felspore sounds like a plant that would exist in a demon world. So Felspore powder is it is an extract from a poisonous plant. Which, this is something that we could use in the future. And we can use it once, essentially. It's a D4 depletable item. D4 depletable. But yeah. Also, it could have been like something that he was keeping, Morgath was keeping on himself, you know, sort of like, what's the word? Like a last resort, you know? Like, if he would have come back to the demons and been like, here's a bunch of these prisoners I got for you, and then they were like, great, we're also just gonna torture you now too. He could have, like, you know, kept the Felspore powder, like, in the back of his jaw, like, under his tooth or under his tongue, and then, like, bit it to kill himself before he, like, suffered under the torture of the demons, right? That's kind of cool. That makes it, it's an in-world explanation for him carrying the poison, at any rate, right? Serve revenge. So yeah, I think we rifle through his stuff. We find what is useful, which are these Felspore powder extracts, and we, you know, slip them into our satchel, and we, you know, essentially we unceremoniously chuck the body of Morgath, like, off of the hillside to plummet down into the wastes, into, like, the shallow valley where, you know, we can see the temple in the distance. There's no burial for this guy. This guy, you know, he's left to the buzzards and the scavengers and whatever exists now in this world that it is forsaken, because this guy does not deserve, you know, any sort of honorable death in Duragrim's eyes. And so, with that, I think a couple things are going to happen. We're going to go back to camp. We are going to take a rest. And when we take the rest, we're going to probably have a scene in which Duragrim has to deal with the fact that the other dwarves in the camp are not trusting him, that they see him as a liar and as a not as a defector per se, but like a tool, a puppet, right? They don't fully trust Duragrim as he is an extension of the Eclipse cult. So we'll have a scene dealing with that. But I think that is for a different session. I think after 2 fights, we can't even get a dang night's sleep. And we still have to deal with the empty remnant. He's still tied up in our camp right now. And the other people don't even know about that. Which I'm sure is going to be a whole nother point of conversation once everyone wakes up and they're like, who's this guy? And there's like a gibbering, half-insane, like, starving remnant husk, you know? Oh, God. There's just a lot to consider there. Okay, so, the quest. So, for our next session, I'm going to add a page. So, next session. Things to handle. We lost our fight, but we lose reputation. Also, I want to see something here. Dream of Glory. At any point, these give you more control of the narrative. At the start of each session, decide what you would like to see happen to your character or the group during a session and take a note of it on your character sheet. Okay, so I should have done that. I should have named a new Dream of Glory because I knew that my current Dream of Glory was find the tunnel that leads me into the dungeon, right? But, like, I knew that was not going to be what happens this session because I was led away from the session. So I think the Dream of Glory should have been something along the lines of, like, because I knew that the remnant was going to find us. So I should have said something along the lines of, like, deal with the shadowy figure, right? Which we did. Because I think we deserve a Dream of Glory. Like, we played 2 sessions without getting one. We deserve at least one. Maybe even another one after completing whatever we would have named after the first Dream of Glory. Because, God, we deserve at least one. I'm going to give ourselves one. We deserve it. I'm going to roll D20. Got a 14. Gain 1 resilience. Listen, I don't want resilience, though. I mean, like, well, resilience is cool, but I want to improve my stats. How do I step up my stats? Do I have to roll it? When you get an advancement, roll in the following tables. Each advancement can only be acquired once. Oh, each advancement can only be acquired once? I did not know that. I should have maybe been keeping track of that. Yeah, exactly, Mochi. Why is it always resilience? I haven't been keeping track of that. Okay, so that means I'm going to have to do some math and figure out what thing I've already picked, right, between my other parts of the session. But for now, I'm going to say resilience is not a thing, because I definitely gained resilience at least once. What's a 5? We step up a weapon. Now, that is something that we have not done. I can say that with certainty. I'm going to make a new tab right now for acquired advancements, because now I know I have to keep track of them. I should have read that section. Sorry, folks. This is what happens when you're dumb. So we step up a weapon, right? Actually, you know what I'm realizing? We might have gotten that one too. When you create a character, what is your starting item? Character creation. You roll your weapon. Yeah, you start with a single D6 weapon. But my axe is a D8, which means it has been stepped up. So we've already stepped up a weapon at least once. We've acquired a new ability because we picked up Spotter. So I'm going to say 16. Acquire new ability. We've at least got a couple resiliences because we have 10 health and we did not start with 10 health. I want to say we started with 7. I'll double check that in previous streams, but I will roll again and see what we get. 20. Choose as you wish. Great. I will definitely take choose as you wish. Choose as you wish. So this is either going to be a new ability or maybe a stat increase, right? I'm kind of tempted to put it into a stat increase because our willpower is still its base strength, D4. It would be nice if that was stepped up. Oh, and I think we've also increased one of our stats once. Right? Because when you create a new character, assign 3 skills, a D4, D6, and a D8. Yeah. And I have 2 D8 skills. So, step up one of my skills was definitely already chosen at least once. But that's okay. It appears multiple times on the table. So I'll just say it's 8. 8. Can I not, like, break the number convention? Oh, I can. 8, which is step up a skill. Okay. So yeah, I'll do some math about the health, but definitely need to consider if I want a new ability or a stat increase. It's really tempting to up the willpower, but also step up one of your skills. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think it's possible to max out all skills unless you use another one, choose as you wish. So that's interesting to consider. You know? Might be worthwhile stepping up a skill to get, like, max skill. Huh. There's stuff to be considered, you know? Okay.